Live now, the outgoing Trade Minister Dan Tehan. First of all, commiserations to you. It's been a diabolical night for your party nationally, but also in your home state, Dan Tehan.
Look, very challenging result, but can I congratulate Anthony Albanese becoming Prime Minister of Australia. The people of Australia have bestowed a great honour on him, and I wish him all the very best, and especially as he flies overseas for an incredibly important meeting tomorrow. And can I also congratulate Scott Morrison. He has run a fantastic campaign. He's been a fantastic Prime Minister. He will go down as one of the great Australian Prime Ministers for what he did in steering us through this pandemic. And he also, I think, as we wake up today and everyone sits back and reflects, we have to think of the way he has tirelessly worked to get our nation through this pandemic. The Australian people have spoken. They've said they wanted a change. We have to accept that. But I think the PM the former PM has done an outstanding job in steering us through this pandemic. And can I just personally say to him, thank you for the leadership that you showed throughout the pandemic. You had a huge weight to carry on your shoulders, and you should hold your head high.
What about your friend, the Treasurer, or the outgoing Treasurer? Many in your party would have hoped that he would be the next leader to try and rebuild, but he doesn't have a seat. Is there any prospect of finding a seat for him?
Well, once again, what an outstanding job Josh Frydenberg did as Treasurer in steering us again through the pandemic. Everywhere that I went, small business in particular, just said thank you for JobKeeper, because it literally kept them in business. And he is an outstanding talent. I hope that Josh Frydenberg isn't lost to the Liberal Party. Obviously, there is a real challenge in his seat at the moment. He hasn't conceded. He sees there is potentially an outside chance of him retaining that seat. But my hope is that he will not be lost to the Liberal Party. He's one of the most enormous talents I think we've seen in the last decade in the federal parliament, and it would be a great loss if he is lost to politics. But obviously there's still counting to go in Kooyong. There is an outside possibility still, so we'll have to wait and see. But I hope he is not lost to politics.
How do you lose these seats like Kooyong, like Wentworth, seats that if I'd told you that a decade ago you would have laughed, but they're gone. They're gone to these teal independents, and not just one, two, there are several of them. Where did the Liberal Party get this wrong, Dan Tehan?
Well, the Australian people have spoken yesterday, and they've sent a clear message to us that obviously they wanted a change, and they wanted to change to the Labor Party. I think the most important thing for us to look at is where our primary vote was. Obviously, we're not appealing to a broad enough church when it comes to the Australian people. We're not going to win elections if we've got a primary vote as low as what it was. So I think there'll be time for reflection over the next week or so. But I think ultimately what the Australian people have said to us is we're not appealing to a broad enough church.
Dan Tehan, Ashley Gillen here. The Prime Minister went to lengths throughout this campaign to tell us that the election was not about him, but we know his approval rating dropped so low during the pandemic, the vaccine rollout, etc. How much of it was about him, and where does the party go now in terms of leadership? Well,
elections are presidential in nature, and more are presidential in nature, and that's just the reality. So I think the PM, I mean, he was outstanding throughout this campaign. Every day he was out there, he was presenting why we should be elected as a government again. Now, the Australian people decided to take another course, but it wasn't for want of the PM being out there and selling the message as everyone else was. Now, where to from here? Well, at this time, I think what we need to be doing is is reaching out for all those who have lost those seats, have lost their seats, and we've got to be making sure that we're talking to them, we're looking after them. As the Liberal Party at this time needs to make sure that it continues to be a very big family and look after all those who have lost their seats. And to all those who have lost their seats, obviously this is going to be an incredibly difficult time. And then we've just got to look and assess, okay, how do we regroup and how do we make sure that we present a positive alternative as an opposition as Anthony Albanese leads this nation?
Dan Tehan, Andrew Clennell, will you be running for a leadership position?
So last thing on my mind, Andrew, no, it's the last thing on my mind. What we've got to do is make sure that we are looking after those who have lost their seats, that we are there making sure we're there as scrutineering on every last vote that comes in. And at this stage, what we need to be doing is focusing on is making sure that we group and we come together.
With Josh Frydenberg probably gone, does Peter Dutton become the favourite for that job now?
Well, look, we've got to wait and see what happens. We wait and see what happens. As I've said, there's still a lot of votes to be counted, so it's far too premature to be having those discussions. We're 12 hours after election day. I think we've all just got to take a rain check and make sure we're there. Making sure that all those votes that still have to be counted are counted and see what the outcome is.
And just finally, you touched on it earlier, but do you think it is the right call for Prime Minister-elect Albanese to go to Tokyo for the Quad? It's something you've been pretty closely engaged with as well as Trade Minister.
Absolutely it is. It's incredibly important that he does that. The Quad has grown and grown in significance under our former government. There is important work that still needs to be done. There's the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, which hopefully will be agreed on a day or two after the Quad meeting. So it's absolutely vital that Anthony Albanese attends that meeting, and I wish him well representing Australia on the world stage, because it's never been so important that we get the right geostrategic environment in the Indo-Pacific for the future of our nation, and it's going to be one of the incredibly important challenges for this new government in making sure we're able to achieve that.
Dan Tehan, thank you, and thanks for fronting up after a difficult night. We very much appreciate it, Dan.
Pleasure, Kieran.